It's got vegetables in it.
Okay, so in my defense this time, Abacus, I did make notes, so let's do this.
Oh, we got notes this time.
2, 1. I think we have beaten that one, to death.
What's next?
What's next?
Oh, he's checking
this
his
one's
watch.
good.
Your
This one
time.
actually came up on a Blade Tech post, being as Blade Tech is kind
Blade
of
Tech.
has swung its sights on the Milsim Airsoft community as another target demographic, and they pose the question: what do you think of using Airsoft as a cross-training tool for firearms and real steel training? And people that are solely embedded in firearms training absolutely loathe Airsoft guns. They think
No. I think that's not a correct statement
I
because
think it is.
depends on which group is bedded in shooting.
So,
Finish your setup and then we'll hear
Okay.
back.
yeah.
So, because people who, number one, everyone's who's not familiar with Airsoft has a different definition of it. You say Airsoft and they think this clear plastic gun with a hopper-fed thing that comes from Walmart. I mean,
Right.
90,
That is
90%
really
of
a
the time
toy.
when I say Airsoft to law enforcement or military or
They don't
private
get what we
contractors,
do.
they go, no, I wouldn't be caught dead. Even no, I don't let that in my house with my kids.
It's like child porn for shooters.
Yeah, it has a really bad
yeah,
rap.
It's very taboo.
From certain points of view, very good reasons in the
then
airsoft
again,
world.
Then again, I think it's the people.
It's who's
which
introduced
group
them to
is.
it.
Because
Who's
I know
exposed them
for
to
a
it.
fact, lots of IPSC shooters, including high-ranked IPSC shooters in the United States, have airsoft arenas built in their basement to
Yes.
practice.
Yes,
We're talking
that's
about
how-
top-level shooters.
I know.
So-
There's an Asian guy that does IDPA who had never fired a real firearm before, practiced with his airsoft gun. He's Japanese. Came to the United States, won his division.
There you go.
You know.
And I can say honestly, I won't name any names, that special operations community members own airsoft guns and mess around with them quite
But
often.
largely,
Largely,
80%, 85, 90%.
Not all. Usually those are guys that don't want to run around. They don't get shot.
So there's a puzzle.
Well,
of
these are also
statistics,
guys
though.
using simulations and soda rounds.
How do
so
you
I mean,
back up your 80 to 90%? How does that work? Is it just guys you know that you can say there's the line and it was 80%?
I think it's who introduced them to it.
I don't think you know everybody.
I don't know everybody.
Who
So
broached
it's
the
hard to put a
topic or
number on
introduced
it,
them to
right?
it did not do it properly.
Yeah.
They look at it as a direct replacement or perfect interface. Crossover.
And it's neither of those things.
It's not.
It's not.
neither.
Right.
And
No simunition is. Not
Right.
simunitions, CERTA, none of that stuff is perfect.
so we occasionally get to field with real service people that have been in the field with the real guns and done real service level training and been in the field for combat tours, the whole deal. The biggest thing they struggle with is understanding the distinction of range in a real firearm, a real combat scenario, and the shortness of the range in airsoft.
Right.
Because
And
wow,
there-
it's really short.
I have a huge military farm. We're Cold Springs military town.
Yeah.
And they come to DMZ all the time and they play airsoft there all the time. And a lot of the guys say, we don't get to do this at work, so we come here and do it. You know what I mean? A lot of them, it's a mechanism for them to do what they want to do,
Right.
which
Training
they've done for
budgets
real.
and
These
all
guys
that.
getting blown
Yeah.
up. So I don't think I think the hatred that I've seen from people that really disdain airsoft are almost always the guys that want to do shooting, don't want to get shot back, that don't want to run around, that don't want to carry gear. They want to go out to the range and blow some stuff up and pack it up and go home. If that's what you want, fine, that's cool. That's, whatever.
And that's true, if that's what you want to do.
But
that's
those
fine,
people
that's
are
cool.
also
But-
influencing the other ones who could possibly be open
Yeah,
to it.
there's absolutely a gigantic schism in the real steel shoot community. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not. I came to I'm new to airsoft, but I've been shooting for a very large part of my very long life so far. And I shot, I shot competitively. I shot 3-gun, IPSC, IDPA, Single Action Shooting Society. Colorado 4-gun, all sorts of crap. And so you're right. My statistic was made up, but from where I've been with those guys
But you have a body of evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Universally, they hate airsoft.
You pull up.
I know because
Do they
I was
know?
one of
You
them.
pull up 3-gun. Colorado Springs, Colorado. They had a tournament. They shot 12 people last weekend, 3-gun. And out of that 12 people, 8 of those people own airsoft guns.
Good.
And that's
One
in
of them
Colorado
one of
Springs,
them
right.
actually told me about it and brought a gun to me and wants me to help him make it more like his real gun. So I don't
But
know
for
if the
every one
division's that
shooter,
big, though.
for every one real steel airsoft shooter you show up, you can come up with a dozen or so real steel shooters that absolutely despise airsoft.
Whether they understand it or not.
And they
That's
don't
their
usually.
view.
They don't usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they're right or they're wrong, or they understand, or they have a good reason, or they don't.
That's their
Because
view.
But
because
even
I was
if
one of
you're
those too.
using-
I watched all these airsoft videos for years and went, get ready for the bleep, Rob. This looks gay as
Well, then it begs this question. Why were you watching the videos for years?
because as I would look for stuff about real steel
Then you'd
shooting,
watch it.
Airsoft would
You
come
just
up.
accidentally
Right.
watch it.
Yeah, you just
were
accidentally
blown.
click onto it. Right.
And then you realize, wow,
there
this
wasn't
is that
no
airsoft
interest.
stuff that you
This
don't
is
like.
Stupid.
There's no interest, but you kept watching
And
it
then,
over and over
then
again.
a couple years later, it's like this still looks really stupid, but it looks kind of fun.
Someone watch it again.
And then a few years later,
I
it's
don't wanna
like
do it.
this looks stupid,
So
but kind of cool.
I can't-
And then eventually, obviously, of course, now I'm playing Airsoft. So there's a
it's
change
easy.
there.
It's easy to spend a lot less money on BBs
Sure is.
than it is on ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
And-
I think is a big mechanism for them getting into airsoft now.
Right,
Well,
and there's
my
a there's
first
a
It's
airsoft-
supposed to
train,
be cheap. I shoot
there's a
ammo all
training
the time.
implication as well.
Absolutely.
If you get shot with an airsoft BB,
You're not dead.
you might get a bloody welt. If you're wearing eye pro, you're not even going to lose an eye.
Teeth.
Which is
Yeah.
why I think it's only a training mechanism so far. You can't,
Right.
You can't realize having
It is,
shit
you're right. It is not an absolute.
Right.
It is a part of training.
Right, it lets you get the mechanics down.
But one of the other things to take into account is the products and the systems. There have been one, maybe two systems on the market for the past 5 years that suit the needs of most cross-training applications. It's
Right.
not only until recently that more have made it onto the market that actually, bolt lock function, limited round capacity, ceases
Right.
fire and function, when
Right.
there's no more rounds.
When you can,
Recoil.
When you can mimic the weapon manipulations, gas blowback pistols, the weapon manipulation is the same. Recoil's not quite the same.
Right. Although with the
But at least it
manipulation,
recoils.
Right.
At least
the
it
biggest
recoils.
argument I get back from law enforcement is they can't simulate malfunctions, jams,
Right.
stovepipe, double feet, stuff
that-
like
that's
that.
what I said. It's-
but that's
it's
where
a
it doesn't
piece of-
apply to that.
Just like actually going out to the range and turning money into noise, that's only a piece of your real steel training program. That's not going to teach you a lot of the other things you need to know also.
I debated, trying to make an argument. I really didn't want to flame it, and my experience is really truly rooted in airsoft. I only, broaden, the firearms community just so that I can understand their language and hopefully relate to them when I, as a salesman.
Right.
But everyone's like, when I want to go to the range and blow off rounds or sight in, my guns, I'll take my real thing. But I think you need to look at the theoretical application for using airsoft in training. So if you're doing, concealed carry, if you're doing security detail, stuff like that for private military, you can do things like you can grapple, you can do failure to stop drills, you can,
Right.
you can work on stripping weapons away, subduing
the
people.
training-
There's other theoretical things that you can do and leave firearms, and that includes simunitions out of it, and it lowers, you don't have to have your ear pro,
Right.
you maintain the eye pro.
Yep.
You don't have to wear big, bulky, protective padded armor, and you get to actually work through these problems in a more realistic fashion, in a safer fashion.
So I'm glad you said that. Some of my real firearms training started off with the basic safeties, the theory of being safe on a range, how things operate. We did real firearms training. And then we cleared rooms with airsoft pistols.
Because it makes sense. I mean, it just simply makes sense. You can't emulate fear without being shot at. So whether you're using starter rounds or simunitions or whatever, you're not going to emulate the real fear that someone's going to go through and the real problem someone's going to go through if they're shot at. But at least with airsoft, you've got a cheap, viable alternative.
Right,
that-
you
that
can practice the mechanics of moving and manipulate weapon manipulation.
everything.
Target
from beginning to
acquisition,
end.
Right.
All of it.
evaluating the
But
target.
on the fear response, there's also another aspect of fear that firearms instructors, especially in concealed carry, with women and men, both equally, when it comes to handling an assailant or an attacker. I talked to a firearms instructor. He said it was the greatest thing. He says because when you're trying to invoke that fight or flight response, it doesn't even have to involve the gun. It just has to involve the body language and behavior of the assailant. And he says you wouldn't believe how many NDs he could get just by invoking
I
that
think that's
on
only
an
a
aggressor
certain sect of
level.
the population. In the back of your brain, it's
Right.
just like it's. I hate to compare it to Star Wars, but the old Star Wars. No, that's validity. The old Star Wars had real models; they really blew up, and the new one was all animated. Something in the back of your brain knew the difference. You know what I mean? It really does, whether you like it or not. You know.
But did you see?
know whether
But
he's
do you recall the space explosion that had gravity effects of debris?
But somewhere in the back of your
Oh,
brain,
too many
you
geeks
know
at this
it's-
table.
There's too many geeks at this table.
somewhere in the back of your brain, whether you like it or not, you
Right.
know you're not going to die.
Yeah.
That
But that
changes
is on
everything.
that is on a higher, a higher level of thinking and
all
logic.
bleeds through. It all
But
bleeds
there's
through.
also the caveman theory.
I've never been in an airsoft game and been like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. One of the things that Jet, from
No,
Desert
not, oh
Fox
shit, I'm
said
gonna
was-
die.
Or not Jet, Arwen from Milsim Junkie said, I was actually having a real panic attack during this situation. I've never had one. Ever.
Right. But everyone's different.
Another example applies to most of our society. The most dangerous thing we're likely to volunteer for is driving an automobile, and lots of people screw that up remarkably poorly.
Yes, they do.